Good afternoon. Good morning. Said London, how are you? Gee, the lighting in this room is poor. Let me just see if I can fix it. I might be able to. Certainly not fixed, but improved. I want to recount to you a conversation that I held with an electrical engineer, a proper electrical engineer, degrees and all, who is apparently very good at what he does because he is an extremely wealthy man. He once asked for my help to buy something, and anybody who can pay that amount of money in one deal has got a lot of money. So that's important. It's very relevant to this conversation. He is a man who knows what he's doing. We've been over this before, but I feel the need to reiterate it because it's more germane now than ever. And he invited me to visit him a few weeks ago. And I was at his place at about 12:30, by 12:30 in the afternoon, and I was back home at 5:35 exactly. So I was with him for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. Not quite, but almost. And during those 5 hours, we spoke at some length about this subject that I'm going to share with you now. And that is how Eskom is likely to fail. He explained to me, as I have explained before, if you find that I'm telling you something you already know, please, you don't have to watch the video. But this bears repeating. He explained to me, he said to me, on Monday, that was a Thursday, on Monday, I'm going to synchronize 6 megawatts of power. And he said, that's not at all the biggest project I've done. I've done far bigger than that for mines. But this is what I do. And clearly he's very good at it. He said the problem with Eskom is that the system was built to, I lack the nomenclature, the words, the vocabulary, die woordeskat. So please be patient with me. He said, when you lose a certain amount of the power in the Eskom grid, it doesn't synchronize. It wasn't built to synchronize perfectly when not working fully. Now, he talked, I mentioned to you the synchronizing of generators. When I was much younger, for a year or so, I worked as a generator technician. 2 years, in fact. And I'm not a technical person, so in order to ensure that I would be successful, and I was, I got the promotion of a lifetime on the basis of that work that I did with those generators, when all of my colleagues knew that I didn't have a clue what I was doing. So what I did was, I did all the simple things perfectly. And I kind of hoped and prayed that if I was conscientious and diligent, that things would go well. It's a bit like having a motor car and having no idea how it runs. And therefore you make a firm policy of timeous and punctual services, and you make every service a major service, and you ensure that every drop of gearbox oil, engine oil, diff oil is of the highest quality, the best that you can get. And you always send your vehicle to the best service place. And you never drive over a certain number of revs. And you do research on what is the best quality of petrol, and you discover that BP petrol is 0.01% better than Shell, according to the international global standards, what, and you always put BP in. That's what I did. So, I'm not claiming to be a boffin in this field. And I didn't mention any of this to him while he was talking, because it wouldn't have been right for me to get into a game of, competition with a man who knows what he's doing, because I didn't. But I do know enough from that experience to know that it is very difficult to synchronize generators of different sizes. Not so much now with Wexler control pads and all sorts of other things, but 25 years ago was a somewhat different proposition. Generators of different sizes and generators not performing as well. It's a delicate act to get them to synchronize perfectly so that they're feeding electricity into the same pipe, if you like, or tube, without the pressure of the one pushing back the electricity of the other. You can imagine if you had two taps feeding into a T for it all to go that way. So coming from two sides to go that way, you turn the taps open, and one is huge and the other one is a tiny little thing, and it's got a blockage and this and that. The next thing you know, you might have the water from the big one going out and pushing back out of the other tap. That's simple. We can all understand that. You can understand that. I can understand that. And so he was saying to me that the grid has been built to synchronize when all of the power stations, roughly speaking, are working well. So all and well. He said, to get the grid to synchronize when when not all of the power stations or the generating units are functioning, there's an imbalance, and it is difficult to synchronize the frequency. He said it's not about anything but the frequency. He said you don't have to worry. If you ever hear people talking about amps and volts and so on, he said it's a non-issue. The issue is the frequency, and it's a real issue. Now, the frequency, as you know, is 50 hertz. We all learned this in school early on. Simple thing. That means 50 waves a second. Every second, bzzz, that electricity is coming like waves to the shore. It's not coming as a constant stream. It's coming like that. Waves. 50 of them a second, 50 hertz. He said to me that when you can't synchronize those units that are functioning properly with those units that are functioning poorly, all feeding into the same system, the same network, the same web, if you like, the same grid. We all know that word, grid. When you can't get them to synchronize their feeding, the rate at which they feed, the hertz at which they feed, then the grid can collapse. It can. It has, in fact, again, I speak without good nomenclature here. He said that there are protection mechanisms in the grid that specifically kick in and he said that that is a real threat right now. Now we know that others have spoken about that. Ted Blom or Chris Yelland alluded to it, and Professor Anton Eberhardt did an interview on it in which there were graphic drawings presented. So it was in News 24, Daily Maverick, or the South African, I can't remember, Times Live, IOL, I don't remember. And he described all of these things that are so alien to you and to me, but accompanying it was a graphic. And this guy, my friend, said the same thing, reiterated what Professor Anton Eberhardt had explained. Professor Anton Eberhardt's point was, I hope that I do justice. It sounded to me as if he was saying, implying largely, there are people who say that the grid can't collapse. Well, I, Professor Anton Eberhardt, am telling you that it can collapse. And this is how it would collapse if it did collapse. And 11 minutes and some seconds into this video, what is my point? My point is that you and I need to be cognizant of this possibility. Professor Anton Eberhardt spoke as if it was not necessarily a present danger. The Americans have that expression, a clear and present danger. Not necessarily a present danger, not something that may occur in the next week, but certainly a clear danger. It does exist. It is a threat. There it is. It wasn't 6 months or 6 years or 6 decades ago, but it is now. Now, so many units are not functioning well or not functioning at all that the frequency synchronization of the grid is a problem. Perhaps not today, but it's a problem and it's a threat. Guys are working hard, they're concentrating. Hey, don't disturb me. Trying my best here. And they're getting it right. But the point of Professor Anton Eberhardt and my friend is that the worse it gets, the greater likelihood there is that this thing is going to the point, or so much so, or we're approaching that point. My friend, in talking to me, spoke like somebody who knows what they're talking about, obviously. But I don't know if you've ever met somebody who's really very good at something. And when they talk about it, sometimes they won't want to indulge a certain topic because it's beneath them. And I got the feeling that that's what my friend was doing at one point in the conversation. It was as if he was saying, Simon, you don't understand how bad it is, and I'm not going to waste my breath trying to convince you. So what is there to do? There is only one thing we can do, ladies and gentlemen, and that is prepare for the worst. And preparing for the worst means, first and foremost, before anything else, becoming a member of Saatlanders. Why do I say that? Just bear with me. It is about the money. We do need the money. We do need the membership. We do need the support. We do need the income and the revenue and the income, I should say, so that we can do the work that we do. But that's from my point of view. Maybe there's consideration from your point of view. I believe that there is. There is a consideration that is worth 109 Rand a month. And that is being tied into, being connected to like-minded people. In a time of crisis, you are going to want to be able to pick up the phone to people who think like you so that you can seek refuge with them. Not necessarily at their house or in their caravan, but in their number, in their company. You're going to want to be 10, not 2. You're going to want to be 12 or 24, and not 4. That is the first thing. The first thing is to buy into, as it were, like-minded people. You know, something happened recently. No, not very recent, not in the past few days, some months back. And somebody helped me. A couple of people helped me. It was with my goats. I had a big drama and I panicked. And rightly so, but I mean, I just really panicked. I was nowhere. And somebody from up the road, and their daughter and their son, and somebody from down at the egg farm, and one of my friends, and another friend, close friends, and one of my friend's employees helped me. And I thought to myself afterwards, what if I didn't have those people in my life? Where would I have been? Nowhere. Nowhere. I would have floundered until I drowned. I would have lost those goats. Guaranteed. I would have lost 2 for certain. No, I would have lost 4 for certain. And I only had 5 at that time. And 2 little ones. So, what can I tell you? It was a reminder to me that we need friends, we need like-minded people, we need family, we need loved ones, we need neighbors. And I'm saying to you that if, as these Boffins claim, Eskom is on the verge of total collapse, by virtue of the inherent difficulties, even impossibilities of synchronizing a system that is as damaged as the Eskom system is, then now is the time, not tomorrow, but now, to pay $109 a month, to connect to people, to learn about the first phase, second phase, third phase, fourth phase of an evacuation from the big cities in the event of a major crisis. Now is the time to say to yourself, well, what if Wimsina van Rensburg was right? I don't want to believe it. I don't believe it. I refuse to believe it. But what if I am wrong? because I have been wrong in the past. I know I'm not wrong now. I know that Umsina van Rensburg is a bunch of nonsense, and those Suidlanders are just foolish maniacs. But what if I am wrong? I put it to you that the day has arrived when ordinary people must recognize that it was always prudent. Never mind that you didn't do it. God gives you to the last moment of your life to sincerely repent. Likewise, whether you joined Suidlanders 30 years ago or 30 days ago or 30 minutes ago, it comes to the same thing. It's okay. We were all at some point not on Mr. Miller's page. We were all at some point resistant, or at least to some extent resistant to his message. All of us. There's no shame in that. Well, maybe a little bit. But we all have the same shame, so who cares? Now is the time. Now that the experts are saying, hey, guys, this thing is over Cordova. Over Cordova, as my dad would say. This guy, K.W. Miller, on my other monitor here, I watched his video of yesterday. Listen, guys, he doesn't have to be a good guy. I've got now like about 12 people have asked me what I think of him. New World Order, globalist, George Soros. Why do you ask? What difference does it make? It makes no difference to anything. Yeah, he's probably trying to make a quick buck. I would too. In my industry, if you were like fairly successful, you looked for the best jobs. In his industry, Eskom, which was once the fourth largest power producer in the world, is the best gig in town. If you're a restorer and rectifier of desks, you want to work on Chippendales or Louis Cans. If you're a restorer and rectifier of utilities, public utilities, and you're sitting in Dubai scanning the world for the best gig on the face of the earth, ooh, obviously, cares what his motives are. It's Spondulux, man. It's the best gig in town. 15 massive power plants. Give them to me, I'll fix them. How about for 1 cent in the dollar? He'd make himself $100 million. Why are people so worried about who this guy is? Who cares? As long as what he's saying makes sense and appears to be true. That's all that counts for you and me. Catching him out about being a devil worshipper means nothing. If what this guy and Professor Anton Eberhard and Yelland and Blom and what have you to say is true, and we are on the precipice of a catastrophe. In fact, it would be worse than a catastrophe. It would be the strongest word in that category of words. It would be a cataclysm. The total failure of Eskom in this country would be a cataclysm. It would lead to the destruction of everything. Business, fuel refining, pumping fuel from Bay Head in Durban up to the Rand, to planting, to sowing, to reaping, to irrigation, The day before yesterday, I spoke to Tinas. Those of you, I can't do the mirror, man. Those of you who, the mirror image of the screen in front of me. In this area, no Tinas Bredenkamp well. And I'd just been speaking to his uncle. And to Charlie. And these guys are, they're going to the extent of replacing all of the controllers of their pivots, their center pivots, their irrigation pivots. Because the Eskom is such a problem that they keep resetting or something I didn't fully understand. So they have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go and turn them on manually. Literally, crops are not being irrigated on the Orange River, or not being properly irrigated, or not being fully irrigated. If Eskom goes down, it will affect everything, and there will be no exceptions, and you will beg God to give you a second chance to somehow magically have joined Saitlanders. I'm telling you guys, now is the time to take out that insurance policy. Now is the time to buy into a national emergency plan for nationwide crisis. The people, the hoi polloi, the peasantry, as it were, and I hope nobody is offended by those words. I know the very politically correct people don't like any words, but I don't have much better words. The poorest of the poor, the helpless, hopeless, and lost of South Africa, of which there are something like 40 million. I'm talking about the 23 million people who depend upon SASSA grants, plus their dependents. The 40 or so million people that might be described as helpless, hopeless, and lost will go berserk because their lives will be shattered. You will go from eating warm meals to cold meals. They will go from eating cold meals to nothing. They will go from getting all of their necessary what do you call it? What do you call this? HIV, this thing that they call antiretrovirals, to no antiretrovirals at all. They will go from being chilly to freezing half to death. They will go from being able to get to Baragwanath Hospital and Helen Joseph Hospital with inconvenience and difficulty when you're ill and in pain, to not being able to go there at all. And when they see everything collapse around them, they will, number one, lose all hope. And hopeless people are the most dangerous of all people. Number two, they will see opportunity. Did you know that in the Anglo-Boer War, the Boers at some point were so desperately poor, lost their farms burned down, this, that, and the next thing, Hanky Fall fighting against the British Empire at its zenith, that the theft between the Boers became the soldiers in the field, became absolutely rife. So severely so that De La Rey said he refused to intervene in any more theft matters. In other words, go crazy. All of you steal from one another until there's nothing left. And then you can all beat one another to death. I've had it up to here. I can't do it anymore. So exhausted was he by the matter. In World War II, the crime wave that began following the beginning of the war in Britain was so severe that this is never talked about, that the authorities effectively lost control of Great Britain. I was reading, funnily enough, just yesterday, on the judge who later became the Lord Chief Justice of Great Britain. He had a fantastic career, and his career was built on how effective he was in dealing with that crime, because it was completely out of control. And he came along as sort of a superhero or a knight in shining armor, and he had the guys coming through his court one after another, day after day after day after day. And he wasn't cruel, but he was just damn good at dealing with it. And so he was promoted and promoted and promoted until a guy who came out of nowhere, who should never have reached that position, became indeed, on the basis of merit, this magnificent, famous Lord Chief Justice. He took the job at the age of 69 and served until he was 81 or 82. That's impressive. You've got to be special for somebody to appoint you the CEO of a company or something akin to that at the age of 69 and still think you're the best person for the job at the age of 80 is unbelievable. And that's what he was. But that crime wave was incredible. And that's in Britain in the 40s, in a country that might otherwise be thought of as a very civilized, law-abiding country. Can you imagine what it's going to be like in this country, in this little piece of paradise? With all due respect, no. Let me be clear. When I say with all due respect, what I mean is I have no respect for you at all, because that's all due to you. That's all that's due to you. You've got rocks in your head if you cannot perceive the threat to South Africa that is posed by Eskom. And you're thick if you've made no preparations to deal with a potential collapse. Now is the time. It really is. Now is the time to cut your losses in golf and cards games on Thursday nights and Magnum ice creams. This applies to all of us, me too, and I'm doing a poor job of cutting back on my vices. I am, but it's a poor job. But now is the time. And to invest in your preparations. Thank you for watching this video.